X4. I started playing this game 8 months ago and I've only just recovered from the addiction. X4 Foundations is a relaxing space merchant game where you look at a menu for 10 hours and then you have to go shoot some ships for money because you spent all your money on a ship blueprint license.
Good luck out there.
I originally bought this game because I wanted to play a good spaceship shooting game. And then I bumped my head on the realization that I had time warped to 4 AM for the third night in a row. You do get combat here and you can create and control a fleet of ships. Oh, and if a ship is in the game, then you can pilot it. But the game is much more of a slow economy game, where things take a while to happen. It has the same feel as Mount & Blade, where it's a mix of mechanics or systems that make it good, where all the individual parts on their own aren't that captivating, but put them together and then it's great and dangerously addicting, to the point where it's all I think about. Premise: you are some guy in a galaxy of several spacefaring and diverse factions, some of whom may start a war or be at war with each other, and you, as some guy, can pick a side, or even instigate the war between them yourself, or declare war between yourself and a faction. Why would you do this? Well, for the economy, of course. Is there any other reason to start a war? When two space empires are at war, then they need to buy a lot of stuff. Stuff they might buy from you. Some guy who made a station that makes stuff. Or you just be a guy that takes space jobs and shoots bad spaceships with your spaceship. Or just become a simple trader or a miner. Just do whatever it takes to get some big money. And of course you can also mod the game into being Star Wars. And I did that after 330 hours with the base game. Because, of course, I was gonna turn it into Star Wars. More on that later. Gameplay loop and goal. Let's start with getting a general sense of what you do in the game and then go deeper into each aspect of the game. X4 is a 4X game. Who would have thought? So the 4 X's: explore, exterminate, expand and exploit. Usually I'd start by talking about combat, but that's not really appropriate here, since economic empire building and management is what you'll be doing a lot more of. Exploring and exploiting is mostly what you'll be doing at first. The goal of the game largely is to make the number in your wallet go up. You can do this by doing jobs or trading, and to find jobs and make profitable trades, you have to explore. Find all the stations and find out what they're buying or selling and for how much. You explore in your ship by doing a long-range scan mode ping, and then flying to everything that responded to your ping. And once a sector is explored, you go through a jump gate and repeat the process. Or just open the X4 map website and now you know where everything is and go off that. Exploring, like almost everything else in this game, can be automated. If you own another ship with a pilot, then you can order that ship to explore for you. You can also automate trading. If you see that Station A is selling something for $10 and Station B is buying that for $13, then you can make a ship buy in Station A and then sell in Station B. But this is more like an order that happens once. You can make the ship do this in an endless loop, which makes it automatic, or you can just turn on local auto trade, which makes the ship itself look for profitable trades and executes on them. And this gives you a small trickle of money. Passive income, which is always good, but I find the jobs to be more profitable, at least at first, and more fun. You get jobs from stations, that's why you need to find them, There's a good variety in the jobs. It can be transporting a person from A to B, escorting a ship and killing everything that attacks it, placing satellites somewhere, which you should be doing for yourself, because it reveals an area, and if it's next to a station, then you always have up-to-date trade information there. Another one is to place a resource probe somewhere to find a specific mineable resource. Again, something you should do for yourself for passive miner income once you set that up. There is also the free money one, patrol a sector. This just means be in a ship that is not docked in that sector for 20 minutes. That's all you need to do. And you can pair that with other jobs in the sector, like destroying mines around the ship that's trapped in a minefield. There are a lot more, but I don't want to be here all day. Jobs for combat, trading, info gathering, building and delivering ships to a faction, or even making a station. I think there is a job for pretty much everything you can do in this game, so the jobs also act as a good tutorial. Speaking of, the actual tutorial is pretty good. It's a long process, but gets you ready. The issue is that it's a lot to remember, and I keep forgetting a few keybinds. There's a lot of keybinds, that's why. Back to jobs. You aren't just grinding them for money. You are also doing them for the faction reputation. You need the reputation to be able to buy blueprints for that faction's ships, weapons, shields, station modules, just everything. Plus, if you're friends with a faction, then they might help you out if you're in trouble. So grinding missions and trades so you can make your own stations and become your own space empire. This is mostly the gameplay loop, making trades and doing jobs. At least the less risky stuff. The more risky stuff is more combat heavy, like boarding and taking over ships, or attacking stations and ships, and then later making your own station. But more on that later. Now let's talk about actually flying the ships. Gameplay, explore. So you're in your ship, WASD will move your ship up, down and to the sides. Scroll up to go forward or scroll down to go slower, or reverse. And to turn your ship you click and drag the screen into a direction, or press shift and space and then you aim your ship just based off your mouse movement. In the space games I've played, the ship would just follow your mouse by default. But I think it's click and drag here because the game is so menu heavy, and because you can just put the ship on autopilot towards your guidance point on the map or a mission objective. I don't really recommend the autopilot. It has a high chance of taking your ship directly into an asteroid. It's better to get up from the cockpit chair and make the captain of the ship go where you want. If you hire the captain. You can hire them in stations and the higher skill ones will cost more. You can also put a captain on a ship when you buy the ship, which makes things easier. Or reassign employees you already have onto your ship as a captain. There's no downside to employees, especially since you don't pay them. Or well, you only pay them once, when you hire them, and never again. So really, they're just consensual slaves. They gave consent, so you're morally good. Back to the ship. The galaxy is a big place, that's why you have the travel mode, which makes your engines go into maximum. Going incredibly fast depending on the ship, and in the base game the engines take time to go back to zero. Which means if you are in travel mode and hit backspace, which is the stop ship button, then the ship still keeps going for a while, and you should get used to this, otherwise you might accidentally overshoot where you wanted to go and fly right into an avalanche of station turret fire. It's pretty much like inertia, and this inertia stuff doesn't happen in the Star Wars mod. There, the ship just stops instantly, and I love that. I can't go back just because of that. There is still inertia on the spacesuit though. You go outside of your ship occasionally in your spacesuit to open lockboxes in space as a job, getting the items from it and taking it to a person who will quite often pay you a lot of money for it. Or repair stuff on your ship or a station. Or do a bit of theft. You get a grenade launcher to use with your spacesuit and get yourself an EMP bomb by crafting or buying it at a station. And then shoot it at a station and then activate your short-range scan mode and scan the leaks the bomb created. And this can give you blueprints. Instead of buying them for millions of space money, you just steal them. It might piss off the station and its faction though, and they might kill you, so have an exit plan. Now let's talk about different kinds of ships. You probably start in a small ship, one that's fast and has good maneuverability, so you can turn 180 degrees fast, but it dies pretty quickly if it's hit. On the other end of the spectrum you have the large ships, like the destroyers, that are very slow to turn and take quite a while to reach a decent velocity, but they make up for it by being able to take a lot of hits. Mostly. So it's a spectrum. The bigger they are, the slower and tankier. And even with that, there's still a lot of difference between all the ships in the game in their weapons, engines, shield generators. Like factions have different focuses when they make ships. Like one faction has the best engines, but the other faction has the best looking or fastest ships. And that's why it's good that ships are somewhat modular. Because you can buy the blueprint for the cool ship and then the best engine and then build the ship at your own station so it has all the best parts from every faction. So explore around and find the best parts. Ships have pros and cons. Try to make it so you have most of the pros. One small thing in this game that's really cool is that at stations you can ask people for directions to places. Like where the faction representative is. And you can also talk to other ships by sending a comms request. I like that. But now the worst part of the game that also makes sense. Most things in the game take a long time. Like traveling between sectors to make a trade can take 20 minutes or longer, depending on the distance. So there's a lot of waiting on things getting built or trades happening. But you can keep yourself busy with missions, but you can get bored of that. That is why you have the Zeta. The Zeta mode in your ship just speeds up the game and tanks your frame rate. The Zeta is great. The main drawback, I guess, is that factions also progress and become stronger with time. So if you're trying to get ahead of them, then maybe you shouldn't use Zeta too much. In the base game, you get the Zeta by killing evil space AI and collecting the stuff they drop. In the Star Wars mod, you just get it. Lastly, when it comes to exploration, you can teleport to any station or ship you own if you're close enough. But you have to research this and unlock it. It's a story thing in the base game, but you get it by default in Star Wars. And this is really nice because it saves you time and you can teleport between ships to do work in other sectors, or just if you need to take over one of your ships because the captain is incompetent. Okay, this is really the last thing. You can bunny hop, and I actually had to do that once in a story mission. And I have to do it every time I want to get out of my ship in the Star Wars mod. It's funny, but should probably get fixed. Combat. Exterminate. In my experience with the game, combat is usually something you have to go looking for. Like missions or going into a sector infested with evil space robots. And then occasionally space pirates will harass you or your transports, telling you to drop your cargo or else. The obvious and morally correct response from you would be to kill them. Unfortunately, transport ships aren't great at combat, so they have to run away. And they usually get away. This wouldn't be a problem if I just gave my transport ship some escorts, but that costs money. And I can't be bothered with work safety. The evil space robots and one faction of bug people, I think, are hostile to everyone. And they do regular scouting or attacks in the more civilized sectors. And you can go there and help protect people from this threat. The actual combat, you have a lot of gun variety in this game and can assign weapons to groups. But I never did that. Just having all of them in weapon group 1 just worked for me. Especially since I use almost exclusively thermal disintegrators in the small and medium ships. Because they do damage through shields, which in my opinion makes it the best weapon. But if you want to be optimal, then you would have a weapon group for taking out shields and then a weapon group for destroying the hull. Just try out a bunch of different ships and weapons, you will find something you like. Speed and maneuverability matters. Being fast means you're harder to hit, and every other ship is gonna be all over the place, and you're gonna have to whip your mouse around your desk to keep track of the enemy ships, as you try to shoot them down. At least for the small ships, but M-class and up are easier to track. But they make up for that by having turrets and better shield generation. Being in an L-class ship with a bunch of flak turrets is essentially being a fly swatter. The smalls can't do enough damage to breach your shield because you generate more shield than they're capable of damaging. And your turrets just kill them. But then you get surrounded by about 50 small ships. And they start taking out your engines, your turrets, and exterior shield generators one by one, leaving you useless and slowly dying to 1,000 cuts. I hate when this happens to me, but I love doing this to other L ships. And you can mostly avoid this by going into combat with more than one ship. So taking out ship subsystems, this is where we talk about targeting. For targeting ships, you can click on them or cycle through nearby targets with page up and down, which sucks. Cycling through targets never gets me the target I actually want within like 10 targets I've cycled through. And this is also true when you're cycling through ship or station subsystems. It will go through all of the turrets or small shield generators that mean nothing to me, until I finally get one of the turrets that are actually damaging me. But it's the turret that is on the other side of the station instead of the one that is actively shooting me. Luckily, there's a workaround, the pause button. That way you can pause and get an external view of your target, and then you can find and click on the thing you actually want to target by looking around the station. And yeah, that works, but it takes you out of the battle and feels like unnecessary work when the cycling targets thing could be easily fixed by just cycling through turrets and ships based on how close they are to you. If we had that, I wouldn't need to pause in combat so much. Right now it feels like it cycles through targets based on the list of ships in the sector that are within a certain range. And for stations, it's just cycling through like subsystem slot 1, down to however many slots there are. And it works, but it sucks. The AI, is it good or bad? Yes. The AI ranges from being masters at dodging shots to being absolutely brain dead, where they decide a good way to attack is not to just reach the needed range for the guns to be effective. No, they drive the ship right on top of the station or opposing ship, causing my ship to die immediately. Apparently crew rank is supposed to make them smarter. I don't think a low crew rank should make them suicidal, but fine. I had to mod crew rank to be reasonable. If you don't, then it takes an excruciating amount of time for crew rank to level up. So yeah, the AI is annoying and pretty stupid, but it works, and doesn't bother you most of the time, as long as you pay close attention when you give them a dangerous task. I never felt like AI was being smart or using some tactics against me. It always just felt like random chaos. Combat can also take a long time, especially when you're killing stations and L-ships. With L-ships taking around like 10 minutes and the stations taking up to an hour if you are bringing a small attack force. But the more ships you bring, the faster the enemy will die. So if the combat is taking too long, then it's your fault. Friendly fire is also something that can be annoying if you're fighting an enemy around other factions. Because if you accidentally shoot the friendly faction too often when trying to shoot the enemy, the friendly faction also becomes the enemy. And shooting the friendly too often means shooting them accidentally like 3 times. And then you become public enemy number 1. Friendlies turning on me happened often enough to be annoying. It was especially annoying when I realized they were turning on me because the turrets on my ship were shooting them accidentally. And that's why they were mad at me. They were mad at me over the weapon system I have the least control over. That's why I installed the Friendly Fire Tweaks mod. It makes friendly fire more tolerable. Speaking of mods, there is the Variety and Rebalance mod, which overhauls the entire game to, in short, make the combat more enjoyable. But you need to make a new save for it, so I didn't really go for it. But from what I read online about it, it gives the combat more depth, where you have to think a little more about strategy and ship fleet composition. Where in vanilla you can take on an L ship in your little S ship, but in VRO, your S ship is gonna go bye-bye pretty much instantly. So vanilla gives you more of an experience of being an ace pilot taking on the universe. And in VRO, you are a fleet admiral taking on the universe. Personally, I really enjoy just going in alone and causing a ridiculous amount of damage by myself. I would recommend saving anytime you're about to go into combat or setting autosave to happen once every 10 to 20 minutes, so you don't lose a lot of progress from dying. But saving does take a long time, and so does loading. I hate that. It gives the voices time to haunt me. The combat can definitely keep you entertained, with small skirmishes to large fleet battles, where you can have a big impact if you come up with good tactics, react quickly, aim good, and abuse how dumb the AI can be. And of course the blind spots on ships. Like the Xenon K has a pretty big blind spot right behind it, which lets an S ship easily take it out. On the larger grand strategy scale, you can take over the galaxy. You can declare war on other factions and destroy them and take over their territory. But this is an economy game. There isn't really a lot to gain by destroying all other factions and taking over. You need them for blueprints and you need them as customers to get money. Yes, this is the capitalist argument against genocide. But you should definitely kill the split because they enslave humans. As a human, I am very much against human slavery. Gameplay expand. Now we talk about building stations and your economic empire. All you need for a functional station is a production module for a certain product, storage, and a docking bay. So once you buy blueprints for those, you can get going. It's gonna take a lot of money to make a station. If you make a station in a sector that's already claimed by a faction, then you have to pay them for the right to make a station there. Then you have to pay for a builder ship, then you have to pay for all the materials that you need to build with, wait for the station to get built, and then depending on the production module you have, you might have to do some math on production costs, and how much you should sell your products for in order to make a profit, or just put it on automatic and hope for the best. I like to make self-sufficient stations, where miners deliver ore, hydrogen and whatever else to the station. And then the station makes products from that. And then those products might be needed as materials for what you actually want to sell. Like if I want to sell food rations, then I will need energy cells, which I get from solar panels, meat, which means I will need to mine ice for water, which will turn into meat somehow when combined with energy cells. Spices, which also comes from energy cells and water, and lastly wheat, which, you guessed it, water and energy cells. So in this scenario, if I have a miner mining ice that delivers ice to the station, then I don't have any production costs. And the station is just straight passive profit. Very profitable if you sell something in a sector that has a shortage on that product. So if you see a sector that is paying a lot for a certain product, just make a station there that makes and sells that specific product. And then you can also assign transport and miner ships and a manager to that station, and then the station will automatically sell and manage its products. The manager will send transport ships on sell and buy runs, and the miner to mine what it needs. But you can always just set up a repeating order loop so it mines ice and drops it off at the station. Once you have a good station up and running, you have kinda won the economy. You will just grow from there with little risk. But the Xenon or others might attack you, so you will need turrets and shield generators, which will be installed onto modules which you can only access in an edit menu for the modules. Yeah, I had to Google that. Building a station is a little obtuse, but it works. Where each module can be rotated every which way and will then have to snap in a certain way to the existing structure. And you are making a space station, rotation doesn't matter. So you can make something horrifically ugly. I lied earlier, a station is not economic victory. A self-sufficient shipyard is economic victory, because people pay a lot for new ships and ship maintenance, and you can make your own army for free, and just do missions for fun. But shipyard blueprints are really expensive, and making ships can take a long time. Like, making an extra large ship takes about 2 hours in real life time. And it will cost time and fake video game money to make an effective shipyard that rarely runs out of resources. With stations also comes trade runs, either a loop made by you or managed by the station. And that's automated, and you mostly don't have to think about it as long as you make a travel blacklist, for example, sectors owned by the Xenon. When I first made a station, my transport ships kept dying, and then I learned it was because they were suicide running through the Xenon sectors, because it was the fastest route. Sure, there was a 95% chance the ship would die, but it was the fastest route. If the destination was hell. Yeah, the blacklist is a solution, and it's good that the blacklist feature is there, but I feel like the AI should be made so that it's smart enough not to go into certain death just to sell my products for 5,000 credits in profit a bit faster. You can also make trade rules so that you don't sell certain things, for example, and you should also disable the awaiting orders messages. Otherwise you will get constant messages from your ships telling you that they are awaiting orders, and that's annoying and really interruptive. There's also a setting in the menu called Maintain Speed in Menus, and it's a must, because otherwise your ship will completely stop every time you look at the map. Stations is how you take over sectors. You need to make an admin module on your station, and there can't be any existing admin stations from other factions in the sector. I think it's fine if the other factions make admin modules on their station after you have already claimed the sector. But if you want the sector and there's already an admin station there from another faction, you're gonna have to destroy that admin station. Defending sectors is pretty easy. Just make a station with a ton of turrets and shields and put them next to a jump gate. It will shred any enemy coming through the gate. You just have to defend the station while it's building. Stations are great. It's where a lot of the depth of the game comes from, with its economy and management. But it comes with huge waiting times, and that is where you can get bored. But you can do missions while other stuff is happening, or just leave the game running while you sleep at night. I did that a few times, but the drawback of that is that the other factions will become stronger while you're sleeping, or everything you have gets destroyed or you die. Mods. I've mentioned mods a lot, and that's because this game is highly moddable, and there are a lot of good mods out there. Total conversion mods or additions or fixes for the game. You can and probably should mod the game so that it's more enjoyable for you. For example, sector satellites. I use that because it changes advanced satellites so that when you deploy them in a sector, they will deploy mini-satellites at every station in the sector, making exploration far less tedious. Faster crew leveling. It will take about a week for a pilot to get trained to 5-star. I've spent weeks leveling weapon skills in Mount and Blade and had the time of my life. But that's me actually doing things. Here it's for one of my underlings and I can't even tell if it's leveling up. And proper automation is locked behind crew ranks. I hate that, so we modded to make it not annoying. More generic missions, because by default missions are few and far between. But the first mod I installed was the Hazard rework, because of a story mission. The short version of it is you're trying to reconnect the jump gates that would connect the lost tribe of the Boron or something to the rest of the galaxy. And to do that, you have to go through the Sanctuary of Darkness, a sector filled with some form of gas maybe that deals damage to your ship and eventually destroys it. Unless you follow a particular path through the asteroid fields in the Sanctuary of Darkness. And I did that, and here's what I wrote about it at the time. Oh Christ, I hate the Sanctuary of Darkness. They say follow the mineral fields, and so I do that. And I'm still in the mineral field, and then it starts yelling, "Danger!" And I take damage, and I'm going very fast, and I'm panicking, and then for some reason, staying in the mineral field makes me safe. And everything is dark and red and spooky, and I hate this place, and I just want to get back to my space cowboy stuff. The Hazard rework can disable the hazard damage. There's also a mod that makes it only do shield damage, which is nicer than vanilla. Still a nightmare, but nicer. The game can be good at making you afraid of shit going wrong fast. Like maybe you go out in your spacesuit and then your ship just decides to leave. That happened once when it got shot at and then left me behind and I died. There's also mods out there that make the AI better in combat and the grand strategy, but my experience with them is limited. I strongly recommend modding the game. I've just talked about the ones that were the most important to me, and I had the most experience with. I haven't played the Star Wars conversion enough to say more than I already have, but if I played the game again, then it would be in the Star Wars mod. But for you, you should browse around and see what people recommend and what's most popular. Story. Exploit. There isn't really a traditional story here, as in there aren't really characters with arcs or some journey or any of that noise. There is one that's kind of a character, and that's Bozo Ta, but his only character trait is that his voice is kind of annoying.
How frustratingly peculiar. I am forwarding all of this to our esteemed expedition commander. Perhaps he can garner more clues. I have my doubts, though.
But the same is true for his entire race. The story missions are more like events that shape the political landscape of the game, usually with your friend Dal Busta, whose character trait is that he reminds me of both Busta Rhymes, because of the name, and Pitbull, because he's bald. At the end of a Dal Busta mission line, you'll usually get a few choices where it's like, Option A, these two factions start a war with each other. Option B, they do not start a war. The general idea is to shape the political landscape between factions so you can turn a profit from it. And yeah, a war probably increases the price of weapon components. And I do happen to make weapon components. Or you can make the morally correct choice or whatever, like some poor peasant filth. There was only one moment in the game that was impactful in any way, and that was when I was working as a spy for the Terrans. And I did some data theft, and there was a witness, and they ordered me to go put him down. And I genuinely felt bad when I was killing him, because he was begging me for his life.
Please, have mercy. No. Please, no.
And killing his ship took like 20 minutes, so I had to stew in that shame for quite a while. Good job on that one, you got me. The main thing the story missions have going for them is that they are at least interesting. I was never bored during them. Not super invested, but not bored, even though a single step of a story mission can take an entire day. The voice acting is very often really bad, to the point that I think a few of them are probably AI voice acted, which sucks.
Look at that beauty. The Hyperion, 3 odd decades of history, pristine like on the day she was commissioned. Whoa, is she trying to shake me off? Not happening. I'm staying right on her tail.
There are places where AI voice acting is appropriate, like it would be very appropriate for a robot, but it's not appropriate for humans. You can get away with it for alien races, especially if you're pitch shifting it or something, but when it seems to be consistently used with the humans, it's aggravating. Because AI voice acting is grating. It's not pleasant to listen to. I've just been talking about the story within the sandbox mode. There is more story in the Timelines DLC. It's got a mixed rating on Steam, and playing Timelines unlocks ships and stuff for the sandbox. And I've played a little bit of Timelines, and it sucks. The story stuff I saw there was worse than the sandbox stuff, and the missions were frustrating, like where you're supposed to defend an L ship from an endless wave of Xenon small ships. But your ship sucks dick, and you don't really have any backup, so you go into the fight alone, manage to kill one Xenon fighter, and then you die. And then you respawn, and die again, and you just get to watch the L ship die slowly as you impotently try to save it. Then you have the awful races or just a shooting gallery. And to unlock ships for the sandbox, you have to play the thing near perfectly. It's just an annoying experience that highlights the worst aspects of the game. like the AI or how hard it can be to control the inertia of a ship. So far, nothing I've seen in the game already is convincing me to go for more story stuff here. The story stuff is alright, I could take it or leave it. Conclusion. X4 Foundations is an awesome, addicting game, but if I'm being honest, it also kind of sucks. The economy mechanics are deep and you can do a lot of stuff with lots of variety, and most of it fun, but the AI, voice acting, character models, and in general, the immersion of the world sucks. I never felt anything that pulled me into being invested in the world here. There were no characters that pulled me in, and the environment didn't pull me in. Because the whole time you are playing this game, you're just looking at the cold, empty void of space. There are a few exceptions, like maybe seeing a planet in the background or some weird effect in the sector, but you can never visit a planet. And you know the thing that appeals to me about space exploration is discovering other planets. And planets are a lot more memorable than the void of space. What is the difference between one sector and another in X4? One might be a little greener than the other, or one has asteroids and the other doesn't. It just doesn't really leave an impression, except for Sanctuary of Darkness. But if the whole game was that, then I would have refunded the game. The tutorials were good in this game, but there was still unexplained stuff or things that were poorly explained that I needed to Google. And that's mechanic stuff or even just mission objectives, like the game will say, set the price of a product to 250 credits. But you actually need to sell the product for 250 credits for it to count towards the objective. Things could be explained better in general, but you can usually find the answer online. Once you've progressed a bit in the game, you spend most of your playtime looking at menus rather than space, because you're setting up automation or giving orders to your many ships, and I liked doing that, because those orders and automations meant money coming in or a little progress in my personal war against the Xenon. But I have to admit that because everything takes a long time in this game, that it does get boring. But I've played this game for 300 plus hours, so clearly the fun outweighs the boredom here. It is fun developing a trade empire and spreading my influence with stations and miners across the galaxy, and then taking sectors away from the Xenon. I managed to split the Xenon territory in half by taking the sectors in the middle, and it only took me about a week. You know, sometimes I wonder how successful I could be at life if I didn't play games like this. If you want a space empire building game where you can take an active part in the world rather than just controlling stuff from a menu, then yeah, I recommend this game. But if you're looking for a spaceship battle game, then there are probably better ones out there. That's not really what this game is about. At this point it's more like a space corporation simulator instead of an empire builder. But soon the game will get a diplomacy update, and that will probably turn the game more into an empire builder. I would not call this an RTS game though. The AI isn't smart enough. It's got all the parts for it though, so with the right mods it would work as an RTS. But it feels more like a wallet versus wallet. Who's got the resources to make more ships? But with you in the pilot seat, the wallets matter less. Right now, the game is something I got dangerously addicted to. Doing missions, trades, and a little bit of war. By the way, you can be a smuggler, since some products are illegal in some places, and you can be a space pirate here. If you have marines on your ship, then you can board and steal a ship. But I never figured out how to do that, because the boarding system makes no sense to me. This is a game I would have running almost 24/7, because passive income is still income, and I like waking up to a few more millions in my bank account. I should invest in the stock market. X4 Foundations is a great framework, a foundation, pun intended, that you can build on top of with mods to make it even greater. The vanilla game is really good, and you'll probably dump a lot of hours into that, like I did. But the game is even better with mods. And sure, the game has lots of little annoyances, like loading a save takes forever, saving the game takes a long time. You can't repair destroyed engines, only damaged ones, which sucks. And I wish I could get missions from a sector that I'm not in. But you can mod some of those annoyances out, and bring in some more enjoyable things. It's a great game, a mix of low and high quality stuff that together makes an awesome experience, and I give the game, please upload your mods to Steam Workshop because it's objectively better than Nexus mods. Out of injecting the boron with testosterone to fix their voices. It's a great game, despite its numerous flaws. Like, subscribe, call me Uncle Brian, and have an awesome day.